Life is truly curious ways of bringing people together, causing two different paths which may seem opposite at first to eventually merge and complement each other. The story we're about to share serves to illustrate that tragedy and misfortune do not always have to lead to a sad ending. As long as there is someone willing to see the positive side of things and extend a helping hand to others, hope will persist in having the opportunity to work its magic. In a small cozy coffee shop in the middle of downtown Maine, people were drinking coffee and chatting. The place buzzed with that kind of comfortable noise, people laughing, spoons clinking against cups, and the occasional sound of the bell over the door as someone entered or left. The coffee shop was one of the most renowned in town, known for the warmth of its owner, the quality of its coffee, and the delightful chocolate cakes he crafted. The proprietor of the coffee shop was Stephen Swan, a kind man, family man, and an excellent pastry chef who'd been running the business for more than 30 years. Alongside Stephen worked his eldest son Gregory, his wife Mary Margaret, and his only nephew Theodore. And it is precisely the latter that we'll talk about today, since young Theo, who helps his uncles working as a waiter in their cafeteria, is the reason why we're telling you this endearing story that you'll hardly forget. The Swan family was one of those families that everyone can envy. A successful family business, a large and loving extended family, and the respect and affection of an entire neighborhood. Who wouldn't want a life like that, right? However, everyone who knew them did not envy them. On the contrary, because the kindness and service this family offered to all their friends and neighbors was too great for that, and their nephew Theodore knew it very well. Theo was only 17 years old when his life went dark. His parents died tragically in a car accident, leaving him orphaned and plunged into a deep depression from which he would not have been able to emerge if it were not for the help of his aunt and uncle. At first, during the months following the death of his parents, Theo withdrew into his own world, and it was impossible to communicate with him or encourage him in any way. Fortunately, time managed to ease his grief, and little by little, the young man began to allow himself to be helped by his family and to attend therapy to cope with his grief for his parents. How would you like to start working with us in the cafe? We've been needing help for a little while now, and I could use an extra waiter waiting on tables and helping with ordering. What do you say, honey? I think it would do you a lot of good to get you out of the house and get back to socializing with people. Our clientele's lovely. I'm sure you'll be very warmly welcome. His uncle Stephen suggested to him one morning, offering him a way to take back control of his life and overcome the deep sadness he was feeling. Of course, Theo accepted his uncle's job offer and quickly began to feel better. Although at first working as a waiter in his uncle's coffee shop, the coffee home was something temporary, while he recovered from the depression he was suffering from, with the passage of time it became something stable. And although Theodore never suspected it, since until the sudden death of his parents he'd only dedicated himself to studying and playing basketball, it turned out that he was perfect at baking. And while he was helping to wait tables and cleaning dirty dishes, his uncle taught him everything he knew about baking and learned to prepare all the delicious desserts that were on the menu of the coffee shop. For Theo, cooking was the cure. While making chocolate cakes, vanilla custard, or delicious baked apple tarts, he felt no pain and smiled again. So when he'd been working as a waiter with his aunt and uncle for 3 years, he made the important decision to become a professional baker. I love to bake, Aunt Margaret. I never thought I could love baking cookies so much, but I do. And the truth is that I would have never discovered it if you hadn't helped me. I owe it all to you, Theo confessed excitedly to his aunt as they prepared the dough for a lemon sponge cake. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I know my place is here. I want to learn all about making desserts and bring new ideas to the business that'll help you guys continue to grow. If you let me, of course, asked the young man shyly as he glanced sideways at his aunt who'd been listening to him attentively the whole time. Of course we're gonna let you, Theo. You're part of the family and part of the business, so any ideas you have are welcome. We'll support you in whatever you decide, sweetheart, replied his aunt, smiling at him and giving him a tight hug. After that day, Theo began to take his plans to become a professional pastry chef much more seriously and spent long hours practicing all sorts of innovative recipes in the kitchen. During the day, he would work as a waiter and help out as much as he could in the store, and then after everyone had left and it was quiet, he would lock himself in the kitchen and spend long hours trying to improve his culinary skills. And he succeeded. In fact, the coffee home had never had so many customers since they'd started serving the new desserts that Theo had developed. People loved them, and it didn't take long for the word to spread through social networks, causing people to come from all over the world to try his creations and share their experience on the internet. It was an unexpected success that the whole family celebrated. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story. Still, despite knowing that his desserts were getting so many likes, Theo never lost his head and remained humble. To others, he was still a waiter, the Swan's nephew who lost his parents in a car accident. He didn't want fame. It was enough for him to know that people enjoyed his food. That was all he needed. What Theo didn't know was that his kindness and dessert-making skills would eventually give him the opportunity to help others and give his food a new meaning. Specifically to those most in need, young and old, who unfortunately every day roam the streets of big cities in search of some food that someone has thrown away. Theo never had to worry about money as his family always had enough to support themselves and give him a good life. However, that never stopped him from being aware of how lucky he was, and that there were too many people living in absolute squalor just a few meters from his house. Every day on his way to the coffee shop, Theo would see homeless youngsters sleeping on the ground near the garbage cans. Some would be as young as 10 years old. Seeing them in that state and not being able to do anything to help them out of that sad life broke his heart, until one day that too changed. It was a cold day, one of the coldest of the winter so far. The time was 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the thermometer was barely 2 degrees. At a table by the window, a lady had just finished her meal. It was nothing fancy, just a sandwich and some salad with a cup of coffee to go with it. She seemed to be in her own world, glancing out the window from time to time as if waiting for something. She was a new customer. Theo had never seen her before, so he assumed she was a tourist or someone passing by who'd stopped to rest along the way. After a while, the woman got up, paid at the counter, and left without finishing what she'd ordered, something that put Theo in a rather bad mood. The table was still a mess with leftover food. It was no big deal, the same happened every day. Many customers ordered food they weren't willing to finish. They were unaware of how lucky they were to have the option of paying for a hot plate of food. Theo knew this, and somehow he'd grown accustomed to looking the other way. But that day something different was going to happen. A young boy between 10 and 12 years old who seemed to have had a pretty rough time of it had been watching her in the table from the corner of the cafeteria. Theo had seen him before, but it didn't bother him. He knew how cold it was and he wasn't about to throw him out into the street. The boy was in very bad shape. His clothes were too big for him and he looked like he was past his prime. His hair was disheveled and his face was dirty. He had the look of someone who hadn't eaten properly in a long time. When the lady left, he saw his opportunity. Quickly, he sat down and began devouring the leftovers as if it was the best meal of his life. But then Theo, who'd been quietly watching everything from behind the bar, walked over to the boy. At first, he said nothing, just watched him for a few seconds. At the sight of him, the boy became frightened, stopped eating, and his eyes filled with tears. He thought he would be thrown out on the street for eating someone else's food. Instead, Swan took the half-eaten plate and the boy's heart sank. After a few seconds, the young man got up to leave, but before he could get far, Theo returned. And guess what? He had a full, freshly made meal for him, hot and smelling amazing. The boy couldn't believe it. He stared at him wide-eyed until tears came to his eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. "I hope you like chocolate because this cake has them all. Enjoy." Theo just served him a huge slice of his famous 3 chocolate cake with cookies, along with a full menu of the best dishes. "I don't know how to thank you for your generosity, sir. I've nothing with which to pay you for this exquisite meal. I'd settle for some warm bread. I don't deserve so much," said the boy, overwhelmed to see so much food on the table. "You don't have to pay anything. I'm giving it to you. I'll only get angry if you don't sit down right now and eat everything on the table. It's for you. You don't owe me anything, I promise," Theo told him affectionately, inviting him to sit back down at the table. The boy listened and began to vigorously eat the first of the plates. The whole cafeteria fell silent as they watched what was happening. Then out of nowhere, people started clapping. It looked like something out of a movie. Everyone was smiling and looking at the boy enjoying his surprise meal. As the boy ate, people started approaching Theo and giving him money to help the boy. They were tipping him, but it wasn't just a few coins, they were being very generous. It was as if their kindness was contagious and now everyone wanted to contribute to the cause. The boy, whose name was Jefferson, with a full stomach and a happy heart, couldn't seem to thank them enough. They didn't talk much, but it didn't matter. It was just two people sharing a quiet moment and they seemed to understand each other perfectly. After that unexpected and magical event, Theodore found a new purpose with which to take his talent as a pastry chef to the next level, creating a small free coffee and breakfast stand with the consent and assistance of his family that each week distributed more than 100 servings to the neediest in the area. The goal was to try to improve the living conditions of the homeless in the neighborhood and at the same time minimize the food waste that his coffee shop and other nearby businesses carried out every day. The initiative was a success, becoming viral news on social networks in a matter of days. In this way, through a small but significant gesture of humanity, two people who were a priori lost in life found the answer they so desperately needed. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.